Hello again. I will have to ask for a little indulgence today because astute viewers will probably notice I'm not in my usual habitat, but am instead in a rather bleak looking room. This is because my wife and I are in Wales for a few days trying to do something with the house we've bought here. It's likely to be a long and arduous task. So far, I've managed to get a desk set up with essential books. I'm using the webcam on my laptop, but let me see if I can show people my environment at the moment. You'll have to bear with me a little. This is the arrangement. I've got a desk here, which you can see. Oh, maybe you can, or maybe you can't. Dear me. Sorry. There's my desk. And I've even got a bookshelf. Just started it with the King James Bible and the College English Dictionary. What more could one ask for in the way of books? And then, dear me, let's see. You can see we've got original Bakelite knobs there. And up above my head, you can probably just see a strange arrangement where there are beams and a skylight. It's like I don't know if anybody here remembers going to Southend as children. They had a crazy house there, which where all the perpendiculars were out. When you were wandering around it, it made you stagger about a bit. Well, that's what this house is like. Anyway, I digress. Let's see what I'm going to do today is to look at yesterday's newspaper and just run through a couple of news items just to see what's going on in the world. Here's a good example first of those cases where you can play guess the ethnicity. This newspaper article here is about somebody called Jerome Danny Daly McDonald. Stop laughing at the back, it's a perfectly normal name. This fellow, Danny Daly McDonald, he got very irritated when he was playing a football game in the Sunday League. So annoyed that he started a row with a spectator and then threatened to stab him. After that, his irritation didn't die down, so he contacted half a dozen of his friends who arrived at the football pitch with knives and a shotgun. And then some of these people shot at the spectator who had annoyed their friends, and MacDonald then stabbed him 3 times in the armpit, thigh, and abdomen. The thumbnail to this video shows Jerome Danny Daly MacDonald, and I give a link to a newspaper article about the case in the description to this video. In mitigation, his lawyer said that apparently his grandfather died when he was 14, and this somehow caused him to stab somebody up so badly 18 years later that he almost killed the man. I have to remark at this point that my own grandfather died when I was a similar age, but it did not have the effect of causing me to launch a frenzied and murderous attack on somebody almost 20 years later. Incidentally, I love Caribbean names and street names. For those who don't know, the rougher type of Caribbean youth have nicknames by which they are known to their intimate associates. These are their street names. I used to have enormous fun when I was teaching at a further education college with these names. For instance, I had a Jamaican teenager in one of my classes called Jarmelius, but his street name was Jams. I used to call him Jim Jams, Jam Jar, and various other amusing variations, much to the amusement of his friends. I only stopped when he threatened to kill me for disrespecting him. Thinking now of Dilly Dally MacDonald, or whatever he's called, I must take leave to observe that Northamptonshire, where this took place, used to be a quiet, rural district. Nowhere, though, is free of the scourge of such modern violence these days, and much of it is associated with certain population groups, shall we say. What else do we have here? Here's a desperately sad item. According to a recent survey, a quarter of children in Britain have never visited a library in the whole course of their lives. On average, apparently, children have not visited their local library for 3 years or more. This is horribly depressing. It comes of state schools pushing the line that all you need today is the internet, or the super information superhighway as it was once known. School libraries have been dismantled, the books thrown out, and everything replaced by computer screens. This, of course, militates against the life chances of working class children. In private schools, the children are still encouraged to read books, and there are still libraries. Middle class children visit libraries. State schools used to make sure to take their children to the local library regularly. Most don't bother these days because a lot of the teachers themselves think that real books are old fashioned and pointless. Inevitably, this increases the class divide. I have remarked before that public libraries were known when I was young as the working man's university. One of my grandfathers was a blacksmith and the other a bus driver. Both were regular library users and introduced my own parents to classic literature, which they had themselves discovered in this way. Here is a very funny news item. And, well, I'll say funny, it gave me a laugh. I fell in love, but my affair did not break the law, insists Hancock. I'm sure that some viewers will remember that Matt Hancock, who was the health secretary, forced to resign in May 2020 for snogging some bird he wasn't living with, is explaining now that he wasn't actually breaking any rules, only not obeying what he describes as guidance. This really is 1984 and the rewriting of history. I'm sure I can't be the only one who remembers how the police were behaving in May 2020 when they were stopping people out together walking in the sunshine and threatening to fine them. Matt Hancock apparently hopes that this will have slipped our memory 2 years later. He says here, I resigned because I broke the social distancing guidelines by then. They weren't actually rules. They weren't the law, but that's not the point. The point is they were the guidelines that I've been proposing. And that happened because I fell in love with somebody. Ah, he goes on to say, and we fell in love. And that's something that was completely outside of my control. This is absolute. I'm tempted to use an expletive here, but I shall limit myself to calling it nonsense. When a married man of 42 feels attracted to some other woman, he has a choice whether or not he cheats on his wife. It isn't, or at least should not be, completely out of his control. What a wretch that man is. Anyway, that's about it for now. I hope viewers will be a little understanding if the quality of these videos is not of the finest, because conditions here are, to say the least of it, not ideal for this sort of thing.